Alright, so here's the deal. Just being a guitar player living in our modern world, I have spent years and years and years just hearing about the legendary Vox AC15 and AC30 amp. You got a million different players who are absolute legends who have used them over the years. So about 3 months ago on actual New Year's Eve day, I decided to drive to a random Starbucks downtown, meet with a guy who I had met on Facebook Marketplace to try and purchase one of those amps. I got here a little bit early and I'm excited to actually see the amp in person.
Good. You said it's in like full working condition, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
And the guy actually ended up being a super nice guy, and although I never actually got to tell him about my plan to steal the Declaration of Independence, to keep it from getting stolen and make an autobiographical film about it, Nick Cage, you stole my swag. I actually ended up getting a really good amp out of the deal, an amp that I use on like a regular basis over and over again for like recordings and different things. But that's when I heard from the wizard. Wait, there's a wizard? There's always a wizard. The wizard told me I had to fulfill the prophecy, and I was like, whoa, 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 Mr. Wizard, what the heck is the prophecy? And he told me, Mike, when the 4 legendary guitar pedals combine, you'll be able to bring peace and harmony to the guitar world. I was like, but Mr. Wizard, I don't know where these pedals are. And he goes, Mike, the pedals have been with you the whole time. And I was like, really? And he was like, no, you're actually gonna have to find a way to get them. And eventually I did. But in all seriousness, I am pretty new to the concept of amp in a box pedals, not just distortion or overdrive, but specific overdrive pedals that are meant to emulate the sound of an actual classic amp. And then I heard about the Vox valve energy pedals. So I decided I was gonna do what I do. I'm gonna take a look and see if it's legit, see what's going on with these things. All right, so basically here's how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna have the pedal board lined up, shout out to my friends at D'Addario, and I'm gonna be going from heaviest all the way to lightest, which is something that I've been very new to more recently. In my earlier iterations of any pedal board that I've ever put together, I always had lowest gain going into highest gain, but just more recently I've heard from people like JHS like how cool it can sound when you have highest gain going into lowest gain overdrive, so we'll see how that works. And just like I was talking about before, I'm very new to this like amp in a box pedal situation. Pedals that actually emulate a specific amp, and like I've just been like an overdrive is an overdrive, an amp is an amp. Like I don't want to mix up the two, but it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. And I'm going to be going straight from the pedals, using them like I said as overdrive amp in a box, and I'm going to go straight to my amp, and then I'm going to be going through the aux through Logic. The only other thing I'm going to use is a reverb, which I think I'm going to go straight from Logic just so I can manipulate it all at the end. And we're just going to see what happens. I'm going to show you guys some projects that I've been working on, and I think that's going to be the fun part of all of this. So even though, like I said, I layered them going in from heaviest to lowest gain, which is something that's fairly new to me but has been working really well lately, I started off with the cleanest one, which is the Silk Drive. And what I did was I have this pop project that I'm working on, which is like a very neo-soul kind of pop thing, just has some cool 7th chords. So I layered those down with that one. Then I tried the Mystic Edge, which is supposed to emulate like an AC30. And this one was cool, but I had to like push on the brakes real quick because I was like, whoa, 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 this doesn't sound like I want it to. Then I was like, oh, gain staging. I think if you're using all 4 in conjunction, which is what I was doing for this specifically, want to use the Mystic Edge one for the solo tones, I had to really play with the volume. That was able to get some cool tones in itself, and just knowing how broad of just like gain tones an AC30 can actually get. But it ended up working pretty well for the project, I think. Alright, so then came the next phase of my master plan, which is the Copperhead Drive, which is the second highest gain of the 4. And one of the things that I love, like absolutely love in this world that I've been finding, is my favorite clean tones don't actually come from clean amps. They actually come from like a Hendrix Frusciante style clean thing where you can get a really heavy amp and just manipulate volume and gain from your guitar and go from there. So you can get it a little broken up. Alright, changed my mind in the moment. We're not going clean. I just like the broken up thing too much. The real deal came once I got to the actual heaviest of the pedals, because I've been clowned before for saying something's a heavy tone and not actually getting heavy. So what I did was I went all in. I borrowed a guitar from my friends at Nixon Guitars, the heaviest humbuckers that I could find, and I still couldn't get that heavy. But I really loved the tone. So kind of like I was saying before, I really wasn't privy to the idea of amp-in-a-box pedals, but one of the things I was privy to was the idea of all-in-one kind of pedal solutions, and that's where these got really interesting because they all apparently have cab emulation on them, and so I was like, okay, let me see what this is all about. Because if you're going to use a group of pedals like this in conjunction, what would it mean to actually like take away the aux box, take away everything else? What am I looking at? And that's where things got interesting, especially when I started getting heavy, because it unlocked some deep-seated hard rock moments that I hadn't let people see in a long time from the early 2000s. Comment down below if you also used to rage to that track back in the day. Alright, so here's where we get to kind of the nitty-gritty and start having to ask ourselves like the big question, because as always, I think it goes a lot deeper than just does something sound good to actually like, this is Vox's like new tube technology. They're trying to actually have an alternative or a future, I guess, to vacuum tubes, and with all-in-one solutions all around the board, and with just like where the guitar world is going technology-wise, I'm wondering what you guys think. Like in a broader sense, what is the future of like tube technology? Like, are tube amps still your thing? Are you sticking to that, or are you like, I'm out of here, there's cool stuff like this, what's next? And that's just basically my question with everything in the guitar world. Like, what is actually next? Like, where's the future gonna take us? I mean, I don't know, so that's why I want to know what you think. And I think it's really interesting because I have friends on both sides of the equation. I have friends who are like, oh my gosh, tube amps are the end all be all, and I have friends who are like, I would definitely use a solution like this. But that's where it becomes really interesting, because I start to really think myself, like, is this a bigger question than just analog versus digital? Is this a question of like actual amp manipulation and what you like in your pedal board? And to be completely honest, for myself personally, it's going to be very interesting, I think, to find out like how my rig changes from here, because it'll have to be about like what I'm going through and actually thinking about the amp, like the Vox AC15 if I'm using that, but actually seeing like how can I manipulate it with like a cleaner drive function, or how can I manipulate this with like something heavier in the signal chain. So we'll just have to see. And like I was saying before, I know that amp-in-a-box pedals have been around for a while, but it's cool to be able to have something like my AC15 and to be able to recreate that and just have like actual amp manipulation just kind of at my fingertips. So that's been great. But I do actually think the Copperhead one was kind of my favorite. But anyway, tell me which sounds you like the best. Thanks to Vox for like making these pedals and helping me to ask some deeper questions about the future. Tell me what other gear you think I should check out next, and most important of all, have a fantastic day.